Hi everyone and welcome back to the channel. So in this episode I want to focus on using the P950 to shoot videos, and it's important that as the owner or a future owner of a P950 that you understand the strengths and weaknesses of this camera. I'm going to assume that you already know how to start recording a video, but in case you don't know, you do it by pressing this red button right here. Now later on in this video we're going to mention switching modes so that you can record at different resolutions. So let me explain how to switch modes right now so that we can get that out of the way. The first step is to hit the menu button right here, and then by default the image quality of the still camera is highlighted. Hit the left side of the scroll wheel, which is essentially a left arrow, and then press the bottom portion of the scroll wheel, which is essentially a down arrow, to get to the movie options. Once you're there, hit the right side of the scroll wheel and then movie options will highlight with the current resolution displayed to the right. Next, hit the OK button. Here you can see all the video shooting options, and you can basically scroll up and down to choose which option you want to use. So how do you determine which video resolution to use? Let's talk about that. Here you can see that my video resolution is 2160p, which is the same as 4K. You can see the fans in my computer spinning, and basically they look just like how you would view them with the naked eye. But I'm going to make another change to the resolution. I'm going to continue filming at 1080p, but now I've changed the frame rate to 50 frames per second, whereas in the previous videos I was filming at 25 frames per second. As you can see, the image is much smaller, and that shows you the difference between 4K and 1080p. Some of you might be able to tell the difference, some might not. But let me explain what frame rate is. A movie is what was originally called a motion picture. Basically, you would make several drawings or slides, and then when you play them back at a certain speed, it would show motion. In the movie industry, they discovered that 24 slides or pictures per second was a sweet spot for the human eye. At that frame rate, movies looked the smoothest. Now let's go back to our P950 and let's change the resolution to 720p at 25 frames per second. As you can see, the image is even smaller than 1080p. And here we have 720p again at 50 frames per second. Now the P950 will record motion at high speed. And when I say high speed, what I'm trying to say is that it takes so many pictures per second that when you play it back, it looks like slow motion. Let's go back to the Charlie Chaplin movie to illustrate. To understand this point better, let's look at an old Charlie Chaplin movie. Although the actors are moving at a normal pace, the rate at which the individual pictures were taken was so slow that when they played it back, the movements looked very exaggerated. For comparison, let's look at a second clip. Pay attention to each individual and their different movements. Now let's look at the same clip at 75% of the original speed. Notice how the movements look more natural? So here you can see the same video clip basically being played in slow motion. When you film someone at high speed, you take a lot of pictures per second, and sometimes, maybe over the span of several pictures, the person may not have moved a lot. Now, as you replay those pictures one by one, it takes time to flip through each picture. If you have a lot of pictures to flip through, then it's going to take more time. And if there are not many changes from one picture to the other, then it's going to look like slow motion. The P950 does do high-speed filming, and of course you can watch the recording in slow motion. Unfortunately, the camera only records times for high speed at 480p, which is even smaller than 720p. However, all modern TVs and video playback devices will automatically upscale your video and resize it to fit the screen. Bear in mind though that if you have a very big screen, the image will more than likely not look very sharp. Although some TVs do have some very good upscaling algorithms that will make an upscaled image look very good. Now the P950 does have other video modes, but I think with this explanation you have more or less gotten the gist of video modes, so you shouldn't have any issues understanding the other modes. The big question now is, how can you put this knowledge to practical use? So on a recent trip to the Orlando Science Center, we sat in on a demonstration that had to do with gases and explosions, and as you can see here, the presenter is moving in slow motion because I filmed this last part in high speed. Inside the balloon is a gas that will explode when exposed to fire. Now, as the lights go dim, she lights a torch and then brings it close. Wait for it. Wait for it. Unfortunately, the P950 does not record audio when it records at high speeds, so you may want to have a separate recording device for that. Now, as was expected, that explosion was fast and the whole thing lasted less than a second. But from that high-speed film, I can grab a snapshot using my video editing tool, and there we have her totally illuminated in a dark room, even if it was for a fraction of a second. At regular speed, it would look like this. Another thing you can do with a P950 is to observe nature. Using the awesome zoom capabilities of the P950, I was able to stand about 15 feet from this beehive and record the bees arriving and departing. Now, if we look at the video I recorded at regular speed, you can see that it's so difficult or even impossible to observe certain details. Now, you might be asking yourself, why not just record at the regular speed and then play the video back at a slower speed using a video editor? The problem with that is that you still have the same amount of pictures to work with, and if the pictures weren't taken fast enough, certain things are going to look blurred, even if you play them back slowly. So the best thing is to record them at high speed so that you can get the details. Now, whether you're enjoying a home video or a movie from Hollywood or Bollywood, my personal experience is that LG makes the best TVs, and I can assure you that LG isn't paying me to say this. For the best quality picture, I recommend their OLED screens. But if you're on a budget, you may want to go with the NanoCell technology displays. Check out the links in the description below.